Today I want to introduce you to a way of thinking that I developed many years ago, which I call the 3 Bs. I'm sharing it with you today in response to a question that one of you shared with me. And here's the question. How do you talk about your impact without shouting it from the rooftops and making it into a marketing exercise? This is a discomfort that many business leaders have shared with me. When they start to explore this, there's something about it that's appealing because it does allow them to bring their whole self into their work. You know, we do want to contribute. There are causes we care about. But there's this tension or weirdness that comes up where it's like, ooh, I don't know if I feel comfortable having to then talk about that publicly or making it seem like this is a marketing or a PR stunt. So it's a pretty common question. Maybe it's one that you've had. And I'm going to use the approach that I have to measuring and managing impact as a way that you can really think about this question and decide who and how you want to talk about and share what it is you're doing in the world, what you're contributing to. Because it is a really important question, because it can be quite off-putting for people if you are talking to the wrong audience about particular aspects of your work when they don't really care about it. So let's dig into it. First, let me just give you a bit of an explanation around what the 3 Bs is and why I think it's important. Now, for me, as someone who has been working around organizations that would use terms like impact investment or social enterprise, I have actually done a lot of training and research into the measurement side and managing how we actually create outcomes and change in the world. This approach is my response to wanting to make sure we deeply understand and respect 3 different audiences. One is the beneficiary. I'm going to run you through what each of these mean, but for now, let me just tell you what they are. One is the beneficiary, one is your business, and one is the banker. So when I think about these 3 different audiences, from a power dynamics perspective, often when we're trying to create some kind of change in the world, there's this imbalance where whoever has the money is the person in the position of power. So if you think about those 3 categories of a beneficiary, a business, and a banker, if you're the beneficiary, which is the person who is being served or who has some kind of issue that's been trying to be addressed, if you're interacting with a business who thinks they're solving your problem or that they're your savior, you know, there's this knight in shining armor coming in to save the day, the power dynamic there is that typically the beneficiary is in the hands of or relying on the business that is having some kind of solution. If we keep going up that chain, if you're the business and you are taking on investment or funding from someone else because they have the money, the power dynamic tends to be there. Here's why I, in my approach, want to make sure we are equally respecting and understanding all 3 of those groups. Because any kind of change that we are trying to create, we want to be respectful of and understand the needs of each of those different cohorts of people. So when we think about how we would answer this question of talking about impact without it becoming a marketing exercise and feeling like we're shouting it from the rooftops, I would use an understanding of my beneficiary, my business, and my banker to answer that question. And here's how. I want to know what each of those audiences care about to inform what information I share with them. So if we say that I'm running a business and a big part of what I'm trying to contribute to is a certain kind of change or transformation for my customers. So let's say I work with parents who have children with different challenges. So maybe you're a pediatrician or you're working with people whose children have autism or something like that. So let's say you are passionately trying to create this transformation that has this flow-on impact of positive change in those families' lives. So we would put them in the category of the beneficiary. So they benefit from the work your business is doing. By us honouring them and understanding and being curious to understand what do they care about, that informs the types of information or results or activities we share with them. So rather than being a marketing exercise or a shouting it from the rooftops, if the transformations that our business is creating are actually important to our customers, we should definitely be sharing those stories with them. So if we are seeing these amazing transformations with the relationships between parents and children, or with children being able to now participate and engage with education in a new way on the back of working with our team within our clinic, we want to share those stories of change and transformation with our customers, because that will give them hope. If I'm a parent trying to choose where to come and receive that support for my child, and you're sharing those stories of transformation that your team are achieving in the world, hearing that and being able to see how much you care and how engaged your team are in wanting to see that change for my child will not feel to me like, oh my goodness, why are you telling me this? Because it's something I, as that beneficiary, actually care about. So the more you understand who you're talking to, audience matters. What we don't want to do is get to this point in our exploration of figuring out what merging money and meaning looks like in our business and assume that everybody cares about what we care about, or everybody wants to hear all of the case studies or all of the results that are being achieved, because that is not the case. But you remove the awkwardness of feeling like it's a marketing exercise or that you're pushing things onto people that they don't care about by first understanding who you're speaking to and then being very intentional in what information you share. If they don't care about it, if it is not of interest to them, then I would say don't shout it from the rooftops. But so if we went through those three categories of beneficiary, business and banker, if you identified that a bunch of the work that you're doing that you really are proud of and are passionate about and you're getting amazing results is not of interest to your customers, then in terms of that marketing piece, I would say don't share it there. But if it's really important, both in terms of a sense of meaning and purpose for your team, but also as one of the critical drivers of the financial stability of the business, then please shout it from the rooftops internally, right? So with your team, share those case studies at whether you have off-site days or weekly meetings with the team. Use that information in the appropriate setting. So if you need to become more explicit for the team of saying, here's all the hard work you've done, here's the results we achieved. And not only did it achieve this amazing transformation in an area we care about, but it had this flow-on impact of it has increased our margins, it's reduced our costs and increased our revenue, or whatever those competitive advantages were that you've chosen. Don't assume your team automatically are making the connections and can see the connection between their work and the outcomes the business is getting. Once you identify that the audience that cares about this is the business, it's important for you to know about it, then shout it from the rooftops there, not to your customers if that is not the appropriate audience. The same thing goes for when we look at that banker category. I'll explain to you what I mean by banker. A banker is anyone who's putting money into your business. For some of you, that might just be your customers, that they're putting revenue in, they're buying from you. For others of you, you might have investors. So there may be either external people, or you yourself and your family might be the ones investing into the business. That category is, again, when we think of this question of not wanting to just be shouting from the rooftops our impact or being a marketing exercise, again, when it comes to the banker, in any of these categories, understand what is important to them. Understand what would they need to know in order to still be confident to keep engaging with you, and how do they prefer to have that information presented to them. So across the board with this, it all comes down to understanding your audience and then shaping what information you share based on that. Just like there will be different information we share with different groups across those 3 Bs, the way we share it might also be different. So if you're in a board meeting, someone might not only be happy with a spreadsheet, they might prefer that because they might want to drill in to the details. If you're sharing the same results with your customers, maybe you just create a really simple infographic and you're still sharing key insights and change or results, but you share it in a different way. So the overarching piece here in terms of this is that audience matters. I would also say most of the time less is more. So rather than assuming, oh my goodness, we've got all these incredible stories or we've got all these results and pages of information, I'll give everyone everything. That curated piece that gives each audience what they want is the way that you would work through and really remove any of the discomfort of this pushing into a category where it feels like it's a PR stunt or a marketing piece. Because if we come all the way back to the beginning where I talked about how this can be unhelpful, if it feels to a customer or a team member like you are claiming something that doesn't actually have any evidence to back it up, or where they can't understand the connection between those things, that's where we fall into trouble here, where you may have seen it across, news outlets and different things, people using the term greenwashing lately. So this sense of getting on the bandwagon, feeling like, ooh, we have to be telling this kind of story or having these kind of examples, that's where there's a shallowness and there's no integrity to that. When we claim things that aren't true or that don't reflect that core aspect of how we behave, how we show up, how we operate our business, we create a disconnect. When you go about this in the way that I'm suggesting, you are going to know and understand who you're working with, and you are going to already have the genuine work and thought behind it so that you know what to highlight, and you will have the examples and the stories in your own business to point to of how you've made those decisions, what you took into account, and why you are prioritizing the things you're prioritizing. Hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to share with you in the show notes a link to a document where I'll just explain the 3 Bs in some more detail. And I really do encourage you to think about your audience each time you're sharing any of this publicly. Don't just assume that because it's a beautiful, inspiring story, everyone will want to hear it. You could actually bore or be quite off-putting in that process. So think about your audience and then share the right information with the right people in the right format.
I think International Women's Day is a perfect example of this.
Yeah. In terms of people getting on the bandwagon and not having the evidence to back it up. In their practices.
In their 364 days of the year.
Yes. It's not a thing.
It's not equal pay, all things, but we'll post on and make a big deal about it.
Yeah, so Steph's example there around International Women's Day is a good one. And if we look at this piece, it very strongly connects back into something like values. When we claim something's a core value of an organisation and there's no behavioural proof of that. Any kind of aspects related to contribution or pieces where you are publicly talking about things that you are contributing to as an organisation or that you think something is important. If you do that, the bigger a platform you do that on, if you do not have the actual evidence to back up that it is part of how you operate as a business, not only will it be unhelpful, so like it's not going to get you the wins you think in terms of building trust and connection and rapport, it actually does the opposite. It undermines your trustworthiness and it makes people incredibly skeptical or cynical when you bring up other things in the future because they're like, but remember what they said on International Women's Day and then my friend who works there told me this story. It's like, ooh, awkward. Disconnect. So any of this work, if you do it in a superficial way with no substance, it is absolutely not going to get you competitive advantage over the long term, and it is not going to strengthen your business. It's going to undermine your business. I don't want you to be doing any of these things in a token way, because the honest answer is by doing them well and genuinely integrating them into your business and just saying what it is you care about and what you're doing. You don't have to be perfect and you don't have to be doing everything, but by highlighting those things that are genuine, you will get the competitive advantage. And in the market we now operate in, If you went back a decade, you could make some grand claim and just the claim itself was exciting and people would give you credit for that. We don't operate in that world anymore. You have to back these things up. But if you stop long enough to realize that in every single aspect of what I'm trying to convey to you and in the frameworks we use and the examples, I'm never trying to make you believe what I believe or care about what I believe. I'm not saying there's one way to do this or that there's one cause all of us have to be obsessed with. I often use the example that I don't want it to be that every single business now, their sole focus is removing plastics from the ocean. Because what about every other social and environmental issue that needs to be dealt with? We all care about different things. You don't have to justify to me why it is that the aspects that you care about are important. I just need to know that they matter to you, and you then go through these steps and really embed the genuine aspects of behaviour and change and decision making into how you operate the business. When you do that, then you are going to avoid any of those awkward moments that Steph just spoke about related to things like International Women's Day, where there becomes this disconnect. It's not that you won't still want to be, in a general sense, a good corporate citizen and be part of broader conversations happening in the world. And we should all be over time working towards addressing these different issues, but definitely don't shout from the rooftops something that you have zero intention or commitment to actually changing in the business itself. That will do the opposite of what we're talking about.